Before I begin, as always, I want to thank my newest Patreon supporters, Wes Franklin and Lore Reloaded. Well, Lore may be a jerk who hates all things that are good, and now he has the nerve to try to look good by pretending to...
Please note that Michael J. Crawford, a.k.a. the Anti-Tracker, appreciates any and all support that his Patrons provide, even from Lore Reloaded.
In all seriousness, thank you, Lore and Wes. Without you, I could not keep this going. Okay, so this is my third attempt at recording this. This has been a painful one for me. This video is a little different than what I usually do. Normally, I sit down, I write a script, I think about it, edit the script, and then record it, edit it, put it online. I'm doing this completely off the cuff today, and the reason being that I just wanted to get my feelings out there in a little bit more raw of a format. And, well, this is kind of a follow-up video to my prior video about my prediction of how Season 1 of Star Trek Discovery would end, and boy, was I wrong on just about every possible front, and boy, after watching how the episode actually turned out, I really wish I would have been right. Okay, so obviously they did not do a time travel story as I expected, which means a couple of interesting things. Number one, it is now painfully clear that the producers of the show do not care one bit as far as maintaining any kind of structural canon for Star Trek as a whole. Continuity is completely out the window. There's really no coming back from this unless they do a magic reset in the near future in Season 2. Because at this point, we've now established in canon that the Klingons and the Federation went to an all-out shooting war. The Federation was all but destroyed. Keep that in mind. All but destroyed. The Klingons had completely obliterated Federation defenses pretty much everywhere. They were closing in on Earth, and then the war just ends. And we'll get to that in just a minute. But the thing is that nobody ever mentioned this. In the times that Kirk and various Klingons had their pissing contests, never did the Klingons say, well, we've beaten you before, and we'll beat you this time too. Something like that. Instead, it's just... Well, it was always believed in the time of the original series that the Empire and the Federation were on fairly equal footing as far as military strength, but it's clear that the Klingon Empire is clearly capable of completely obliterating the Federation, and almost did. Whatever. We also know, of course, Lorca had a pet Tribble. Well, you know, it's a minor nitpick at best, but even though Tribbles had apparently not been known until the time of Cyrano Jones on K7, we also find that Lorca's Gorn skeleton that he kept in his quarters, well, even though Kirk had never heard of a Gorn before, apparently the Federation knew about them, just didn't care to tell Kirk, I guess, even though the Enterprise was in that part of space at the time. So, yeah. The Spore Drive, still in canon. You know, they do say, oh, well, you know, we're just going to use regular warp drive until they come up with a non-human method of traversing the network, which, okay, that could be an excuse, but then it's never been mentioned, never been used in emergency situations. I can think of at least a few situations that could have been dealt with very quickly if they could immediately transport across the universe instantaneously. For example, throughout the entire run of Star Trek Voyager, if they knew about the mycelial network, couldn't they have constructed a spore drive for Voyager? Just a thought. But apparently nobody knows about it because reasons. This was the most anticlimactic season finale I think I've ever seen in the history of Trek. And keep in mind, when the original series aired, they didn't really do season finales. They just kind of had, well, the season just ended. The funny thing is, this was set up like a season finale, but it really felt like it just ended, but not in a good way. They just kind of ended the various plot threads that they were working on. And they all ended with the same basic resolution, which is Michael Burnham is awesome. Which, that part of my prediction at least is true. The central theme of the show is still Michael Burnham is awesome. And so the resolution of the mirror universe, well, Michael Burnham is awesome. And so she manages to convince the emperor of the mirror universe to not commit genocide because reasons. The whole Klingon war, well, Michael Burnham is awesome. And so she single-handedly convinces the Klingons to just stop fighting because Michael Burnham is awesome. And, of course, her mutiny and convicted to life in prison. Well, Michael Burnham is awesome, and so because of that, they just give her rank back, and the president of the Federation, him or herself, signs the pardon, and so Michael is now a commander again. I'll be honest with you, there was one surprise, and that is honestly just that they didn't make her a captain. Why stop at commander? She is awesome after all, so why not just make her in command of the Discovery? Why not? So then we finish the episode after having Michael Burnham be awesome in every way conceivable to the one thing that could make her even more awesome. And that is, of course, if she now has to save none other than the U.S.S. Enterprise. Why not? So they get a distress signal from the Enterprise commanded by Captain Pike, which we know, of course, assuming that they care at all about continuity, which they don't, but hey, whatever. If the Enterprise shows up with a priority 1 distress signal, and that's the end of the season. So chances are somehow Michael Burnham is going to now save the Enterprise as well as saving everything else. All right. Now, obviously, I felt that this was rather anticlimactic, and I want to touch on one thing. And here's the thing: I genuinely don't want to get into just bashing other YouTubers or anything like that, but this is just a perfect example. So I want to talk about Hybrid Network for a moment. Hybrid Network is another YouTube channel. Check it out. They generally produce good quality videos. I'm not saying that they're horrible garbage or anything, but they just did a review of the season 1 finale, and they gave it a 9 out of 10. Really. They give it a 9 out of 10. I'm not kidding. They also go on to say that, they kind of, man, I have a problem with this. And it's not just with Star Trek. It's with the newer Star Wars as well, as the defenders of them want to talk down to those that don't like it. And so, oh, well, you just didn't understand. Or, oh, well, you complain about the politics, but, it's always been political. And that's where it's kind of where they go here. They say, oh, well, all these people that don't like it. Hey, Star Trek has always had a progressive message of tolerance and inclusion. Yeah, and that's not what I've complained about. I'm all about inclusion. I think that's awesome. If you want to have every single member of the cast be of a different race, gender mix-up, I'm granted, you'd have a small portion of the cast to be actually human if you could do that, but whatever. But no, my problem here is not inclusion. My problem is exclusion. My problem is that when people go out of their way to exclude one group or another, and in the case of both Star Trek Discovery and the newer Star Wars, that group is white, and Discovery specifically heterosexual male. As of this writing, the end of the episode shows that there is now not a single white heterosexual male in the cast. Well, I shouldn't say the cast, because Doug Jones, who plays an alien, is a white male. I don't know what his sexual orientation is, don't care. But I mean, as a character, there are no white heterosexual males. The only one they even had on the entire season as a regular cast member was a space Nazi anyway, and as of now is dead, so it doesn't really matter. So, yeah. In Star Wars, obviously, they killed off the pre-existing white males, namely Han Solo and Luke Skywalker, and all the new characters are either not white or not male. Yeah. And, of course, the problem with this is that they kind of try to insulate themselves from any kind of fair criticism. So, for example, I may think that Michael Burnham is a Mary Sue character. I think that she's horribly written and boring because she can't make any real mistakes that have any real consequences. And to which people say, well, you're just upset because there's a black woman and this the main character. No. That's not what I'm complaining about. And that's the thing, is that you end up with these straw man commentaries and arguments about how people that don't like it just don't like, and then throw in whatever politically correct terminology you want. Oh, they don't like that there's gay people. Oh, they don't like that there's black people. Oh, they don't like that there's whatever. And it's so frustrating because the reason I don't like Discovery isn't even the fact that there's not much in the line of white men in the cast. It's that it's not a very well constructed or written show. Michael Burnham is obviously the character we're supposed to care about throughout this series. And she is the single most boring character on the show. And she's the least interesting character on the show because she is perfect. And people will argue, well, wait, she made mistakes. After all, she started the war. No, she didn't. She tried to prevent the war and was not successful in preventing the war. But there's a difference between causing the war and not being successful in preventing the war. In this last episode, I'm sure people will try to argue this is one of her big flaws is that she blames herself for her parents' death. But this is one of those things where it's like, if that had haunted her from the beginning of the series, sure, I could see that as something bothering you, something that could haunt you for a lifetime, and that would be awesome. That could be a great character trait of hers. This is a ghost of her past, a skeleton in her closet that she's been dealing with. But no, they just bring it up now when it's convenient. She's sitting there watching Klingons gamble and it gives her a flashback. This should be called Star Trek PTSD instead of Star Trek Discovery, because it seems like their idea of drama on this show is just to have random people have flashbacks to horrible things happening to them in the past and then pretending that that's the same thing as actually building up from those horrible things. Because guess what? Just telling us in the last episode of the season, that she had this particular traumatic experience. We already knew her parents were killed by Klingons. That we learned in the first episode. But on this, we learned the manner in which it happened and the fact that she blames herself because she convinced her parents to stay when they wanted to leave the colony. That could have been interesting, but it was never explored until now. And now it's just kind of mentioned. And mentioning something is not the same as earning a dramatic moment. It really isn't. Just telling us that, oh, I'm conflicted is not the same as showing a conflicted character. And I don't think that the writers of Star Trek Discovery understand that. The only thing they understand is we have to make Michael Burnham awesome all the time. And that is boring. I don't want to watch Michael Burnham be perfect in every episode, and everybody else isn't. And that's why everybody else is a more interesting character on this show. Suru is a more interesting character. Lorca was a more interesting character. But here's the funny thing. Tilly, as much as I didn't like Tilly, more interesting than Michael Burnham. And this is a real problem here to me about Discovery. And if you want to compare Discovery to the other Star Trek shows, let's do one quick comparison. Name this character. Or this one. Or this one. The problem is that we get one of two things in the show. We either get, well, three things really. We have Michael Burnham, who's perfect in every way. We have the supporting characters, of which there's just a couple who are more interesting than Michael, but really the only purpose for their existence is to talk about how awesome Michael is or to fail at doing something so that Michael can rescue them. And then we have the rest of the crew, which, again, is just there to say Michael Burnham is awesome, or to do whatever Michael Burnham needs them to do, or whatever, or to be jerks at the proper time, whatever is needed. But they're not fleshed out characters. We have Robot Girl, okay? So what's the deal? That could be an interesting character. We have this one girl who started in the first episode, and now she has these cybernetic implants, and what's up with her? Why? Well, she's actually been in the entire series, but we don't know jack about her. I want to learn about these characters. Heck, in the original series, there was not a single episode where the entire episode revolved around Sulu. But you knew who Sulu was. You had an idea of what kind of a person he was by the end of the series. Heck, by the end of the first season. You may not have known him as well as you knew Kirk, Spock, McCoy, but you at least knew he was. You knew Scotty. You knew Chekhov, you knew Uhura. For the diehard fans, they knew Commander Kyle, right? And so the supporting cast was not just hey, there's the robot person. Hey, there's, if it was the original series, hey, there's the Asian guy. Hey, there's the black lady. No, these felt like people. Sulu and Uhura felt like real people. The robot lady and implant lady just feel like they're the robot lady and implant lady. Okay. But Michael Burnham is awesome. And so that's what we're going to make our show about. I don't know. I want to say Star Trek is dead, but it's beyond dead. It's being desecrated. Its corpse is being spat upon by the people at CBS. And I hope and I pray that season 2, the writers of Discovery realize some of their mistakes in this and A, make Michael Burnham an interesting character, assuming she's going to still be the center of the entire series, and B, stop their overt hatred of white men, because all that does is detract from the show that's already struggling just to be watchable. And quite frankly, if this kind of thing continues, I may continue to watch the series just to do reviews and stuff for this channel, but I genuinely will not be taking any enjoyment, nor will I recommend that anybody pay money to watch this crap. And let me tell you, we have no idea how many people watch this show, but I guarantee you that it is not a successful show by any objective network measuring standard. I think that the reason we don't know how many people are watching it is because CBS would be embarrassed to publish the actual numbers. The only thing they say is, oh, record numbers of people subscribe to CBS All Access, their streaming service. But notice they never tell you what that record number is. Now, let me tell you, if that number was 10 million people, they would definitely tell you. And by the way, 10 million is not just a number I pulled out of my behind. That would be a successful network TV show. You know, a show like Big Bang Theory will take in an audience of 10 million. And so if they could get a number like that, they would be bragging about it all day long, especially people paying money to watch their show. But no, all they say is it's a record number. Well, record number just means more than they've had before. And we don't know what they had before. So, yeah, CBS, you want to brag about how successful it is? Tell us the real numbers and we'll see. But I would be willing to bet money that it's a complete and utter failure as far as ratings are concerned. And if season 2 doesn't fare much better than season 1, chances are they're going to ditch the series at that point because it's pointless. Now, if they do, they'll probably say, oh, it was always meant to be a 2-season show, which is a load of crap, but they'll say something like that to save face. But they spent way too much money on producing these shows than to think that it was only going to last for 1 or 2 years. But we shall see. Man, unfortunately, we shall see. I am going to do some detailed reviews of the Star Trek Discovery episodes, but I need to get away from it for a little while, let it rest, and I will come back to it probably this summer or something, unless my Patreons start begging for it. But in the meantime, I hope that you all have a good day and celebrate with me that season 1 is done. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. And hey, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, or dislike and comment. And you can still subscribe if you want. And let me know what you'd like to see in the future or what you did or didn't like about this video. Also, if you really like what you see here, check out my Patreon page. If I can get a little bit of support there, I'll be able to focus more time and resources into making these videos higher quality and more frequently. Thanks again for watching. Take care. The preceding documentary was created for the express purpose of criticism, commentary, and education, and is therefore protected under the Copyright Act of 1976, Section 107, which reads in part, the fair use of a copyrighted work, including such use by reproduction in copies or phonorecords, or by any other means specified by that section, for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, including multiple copies for classroom use, scholarship, or research, is not an infringement of copyright.